What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Blazers Uprise post-game show. So sorry, I cannot figure out how the bottom and top things aren't working right. So I apologize for that, but hopefully everyone can at least hear me right and see me. Is it working okay? Everyone hear me? Yeah. This game absolutely sucked. Yeah, might as well just keep the Blazers Celtics thing on there. And Blazers didn't play right. I can't figure out how to do this the graphics package, even though Tori showed me how to do it, but it wasn't working right. So I apologize for that. We got to talk about this game. Just absolute terrible game. Like probably a lot of us probably wish we did not waste our time watching that train wreck. We'll get to that in just a minute, but first, let me thank BetOnline.ag. They've been a great sponsor for Blazers Uprise all season long. If you're interested in gambling at all, we have March Madness coming up later this week. We have the Blazers tonight. We're 3-point underdogs, so the spread was only 3 points for the Pelicans to make money if you thought the Pelicans were going to kill us, even without Dame. So I could have made a lot of money betting on the Pelicans tonight. So if you would, if you're at all interested in gambling, BetOnline.ag is a great website, and they've been very good to us. So if you wouldn't mind returning the favor. And on top of that, if you use the code BLEAV, believe, you get a 50% reward bonus on your deposit. So really, really cool reward you get for joining up with them and depositing your money there. So go check it out. All right. Yeah, this game sucked. There's no real way to sugarcoat this. Pretty much everyone sucked. Ant was okay, I thought. Nurk was absolutely terrible. Grant didn't show up. Happy birthday to him. I guess he didn't feel like playing on his birthday. Yeah. The rest of the starting lineup, Reddish had a bunch of turnovers like normal. He had a couple of bright spots on offense. Nice cut early in the game, but other than that, was like awful on defense as well. Thibault was not good either, even though he hit a couple threes. Yeah, and then Drew comes in and gets benched within 2 minutes and gets sent to the bench. Man, just a really weird game. The Blazers just did not have it, and it's not like the Pelicans were at full strength, so you can't really use that as an excuse. They're on a back-to-back, so they got blown out by the Thunder at home last night, and then played great tonight. Trey Murphy looked like one of the best players in the league. So yeah, it's crazy because the Blazers, they keep telling us we're not giving up on this season or whatever. And I 1,000% agree with any kind of injury to any of our main players. You automatically sit them. We don't need anyone, especially Damian Lillard, risking any sort of injury right now on this team. And this team is awful. So there's no reason to risk him if he's got a calf issue, turning that into a much bigger issue, or an Achilles injury, or some, knock on wood, something that like keeps him out for part of next season, or so he can't be in shape this summer. So I 100% agree with the decision to sit him. But, can we stop the charade of we're going for the playoffs and we still believe and all this stuff? This team is not going anywhere. They're not good enough. And the defense they do not play defense like a team that cares about making the playoffs, because you don't give up 40-plus points in the first quarter if you're playing defense. And it's not like we had our miniature backcourt in there tonight. It was Thibault and Reddish and Grant and Nurk and Ant and stuff. So there's no chance. Because I have no idea how to do that, so you're gonna get this is what you're gonna get from me tonight. Sorry, I don't know how to play any of the audio and stuff like that. I apologize, but I made it. I got online. That's about as much as I could do. I thought I had it set up to where I could download the right things on the top, so that all worked, but obviously that didn't. Tori couldn't make it on the stream tonight, so he was trying to help me, but he's not able to right now. So we're just gonna have me as the only camera. We can talk about what Chauncey says. We can do Tankathon, and I'll just tell you what happened, where everyone can run their own sim, and we can talk about whoever has the best luck out of all of us. We could just have some fun with it. Before it gets away here, let me just thank Chris S. for his member message. He asked, does the team suck or does the coaching suck? We had 4 at least theoretical plus defenders starting today, and we got a total mess on that end. Well, I think right now, I think you have to say both, right? Dame is unreal, so he's good enough to keep us somewhat relative in the playoff standings. But, I mean, this team has no ball handling when either Dame or Ant miss a game. We've seen that now for, going on a month or month plus since Anthony went down, and now Anthony comes back and Dame doesn't play. Arcidiacono played tonight, but it's not like he's an NBA level rotation player. So this team, we talked for years about how, Olshey could never balance the roster. That was always the thing. Never balances the roster. It's always unbalanced. Well, this team is way, way, way more unbalanced than any team that Portland has had in the Dame era. They have literally one player over 6'9", and they have the 2 ball handlers that start with no option if one of those guys miss games. So, they're already starting at a point where they're disadvantaged with, no one who can even really bring the ball up. We saw tonight, Thibault inbounds the ball right to CJ and he lays it in. We can't even inbound the ball off a made basket without turning the ball over. And then in the second half, the game was over, but Drew grabs a rebound and throws it right to a Pelicans player, and we turn it over again. It's what are we doing? And then also, we like I said, we don't have any big man depth. Nurk, he's obviously, he was terrible tonight. He's obviously still trying to get back into, game readiness. But, we need a backup center that you can put in with some size that can play some defense. So I think part of the problem is this roster, while it might have some good players on it, it's not set up to succeed at the areas we need it to succeed at. And that's going to be a problem, I think, as long as the roster is unbalanced. But on top of that, Chauncey, he's been terrible this year. He's been awful. We just played them 11 days ago. They absolutely abused Chauncey's stupid zone defense. And here we go, running the same zone defense in the first quarter, giving up 42 points. Even without Ingram, it still gets abused. And Chauncey's just still running this stupid zone defense out there. at least in the Philly game when he ran zone, he was doing different things with the rotations. Like the players were moving to different spots and they weren't just staying in their areas and stuff. So like it actually worked kind of because it was a little different than what we usually run out. But the one tonight was just back to our basic zone defense. And so like I don't know. I mean, there's only two explanations for how bad Chauncey's been this year. He either is an awful coach and shouldn't be the coach of an NBA team, or he's purposely like he has it with the front office that they do not want to win this year, and he has to be doing it on purpose. Like I don't understand how someone that understands the game as well as Chauncey does can be that bad at like scheming and doing things. So like that would make sense if he's like purposely doing it, but unfortunately we're not going to be able to fire him most likely this offseason, so he'll probably have the excuse, the roster was unbalanced, the front office telling him that it's okay to not win games, so like don't coach your best or whatever they're doing. So either way, I think he's going to have an excuse to get one more year, but I would imagine that the pressure would be on fully next year if Cronin is allowed to fire him. But the reason why, I mean, we could fire him, Chris, but the problem is he signed a 5-year contract. The 4th year is a team option, so we could just get out of that. But there's 2 years on that deal still. I don't know what the actual amount is. I'm guessing it's probably somewhere around $5 million a season. So that's like $10 million you'd have to pay him when you fire him, because those contracts are guaranteed outside of that 5th-year team option. So I don't think Jody's going to pay $10 million when she won't even pay $500,000 to get like a Nerlens Noel or a backup center on this team right now. So I mean, it could happen. They could go all in this summer and think they have a good enough team to where if they got an upgraded coach that they could make some noise. But I'm just not hopeful that that'll happen. And like I said, I mean, it could be very simply that they don't want him to coach well right now, and they're happy with him that he's not winning these games. Maybe not happy with some of the development or some of the ways the defense looks, but I think it's more likely that he is doing a lot of the things that this team wants, like playing Cam Reddish and Thibault and stuff, even though that doesn't make sense. I just don't know how to explain how bad he is, other than maybe him like just not be willing to like win games because he's trying to follow orders from above. But I mean, that's also dumb. So I don't know. Thank you to Little Scrappy 50 Cent for the $2 donation. There was no message attached. I don't know if it got held for something, but if you did mean to do that, tag me in a post, Little Scrappy, and I'll read it out loud. But thank you for the $2 donation. And then Carter Dick with a $5 donation. Thank you, Carter. He asked, what would you grade Thibault and Cam's season? Better or worse than you expected? I don't like. So, trying to think of how to word this. I was very harsh on Cronin for the trade deadline, right? I just thought our moves were absolutely terrible in terms of setting us up for long-term success. I think both of them have been solid at the things that we need them to do, or like we thought they'd be good at. So Cam obviously can score a little bit, can handle the ball a little bit, can get hot shooting. His defense is bad, so that's what I thought it'd be. So I mean, I can't give either of them more than like a C, an average grade right now. I think they've both been okay. They both could be like solid, maybe end of rotation guys on a really good team. Thibault probably more so just because of this team's need for desperately need of defense. But yeah, so yeah. Yeah, Thibault, I mean, he's been okay. He shot the ball well early on, had a bunch of rough games to get his average back down a little bit, and now going up. But here's the problem. The better they play right now on a team that they're not helping win, the worse we're going to have to pay, or the more we're going to have to pay them. So I don't understand. I don't understand what they're doing. I mean, they only play Sharp 3.5 minutes. Like, how on earth was anything that happened tonight Sharp's fault in the first half? I mean, I don't care if he messed up every possession he had in the first 3.5 minutes. He wasn't worse than anyone else on the floor. So, like, why aren't they like developing him versus guys that you're just developing to have to pay more if they play well? It makes no sense to me. And they haven't had we have a good lineup tonight, and our team just gets absolutely destroyed. We give up 42 points in the first quarter with a big defensive lineup out there. Like, how is that supposed to make us feel good that those guys will make a difference if we re-sign them next year? Kevin Peoples Mix, you're proving my point. I knew he was good at attacking closeouts. I knew he was good at secondary playmaking. I knew he could be somewhat efficient in the right situation where he's not relied on to take like really tough shots and be the main guy on offense. What I wanted to see from him was really good defense, because you bring in a 6'8" guy with length and stuff, and that's all people talk about. Oh, he's 6'8", he's 6'8", that means he's automatically good on defense. He's not good at defense. He's absolutely terrible on defense, and unfortunately it's just something that we don't need. An efficient small forward on offense. We need that's not like a lights out 3-point shooter. We need a good defender who is also a good 3-point shooter. And I don't think that other stuff matters that much. But so that's just where I'm at. It's not a knock on Cam Reddish. He's been fine. Like he's been I'm glad he's actually getting a chance right now to show some stuff. But like he's got to look at what he's doing on film and figure it out on the defensive end, because that's how he could really make an impact and really make a long-term long-term growth in this league and stick around for another 8 to 10 years if he learns how to become more of a locked-in defender. And until that happens, I just don't see how he could be anything more than maybe someone you bring in off the bench and look to maybe get hot and score some baskets. That's just how I feel. Like I said, it's nothing against Cam. It's just that's a tough thing, because like we're asking things that aren't his strengths, but in this particular Blazers lineup, we need those things that he's not good at to be a strength. So I don't think it's a good fit like long term with him, because we need our small forward to be, a good point of attack defender, and unfortunately for him, he's just not. But that's not his fault. I mean, he's just coming in a situation where they are expecting him to change the way he is, and I don't think that's fair to Cam. So like I'm not going to sit here and say he sucks or anything like that. He doesn't. He's actually, I think he's an NBA level player even without the defense. But just for our situation in Portland, I understand why that like anyone thought that was going to be the answer to things unless we severely change the rest of our roster, which is a possibility. But yeah, I don't know. I do think they'll probably resign him though. Laser with an Australian $2 donation. You reckon Dame will get the scoring title? Um, this is gonna be an interesting thing moving forward. I don't think he. I mean, I think he would like to get the scoring title, but I don't think he's like thinking about that when he plays. Um, the fact that he sat out tonight, I don't know. It could just be one game once again, like the Sacramento game, but it could also be a sign that maybe they're starting to pack it in a little bit. So that's quite possible. Um, but yeah, I don't. The problem for Dame, and I mean Embiid and Luka, I think are the two people ahead of him, right? And they Harden takes a lot of the scoring away from Embiid now that he's back in the lineup, and also Kyrie is there in Dallas now, so he'll take a little bit of the scoring burden from Luka. But I don't know. I think now that Anthony's back and stuff, it's just going to be a lot harder for Dame to have those monster games that he was having, and yeah, unless Anthony just completely defers to him, I would think that he'll probably come close, but yeah, it'll probably take both of those guys falling down a half a point or two instead of Dame like scoring enough to overtake both of them if they stay where they're at, if that makes sense. Um, let's see, another episode, $3 or $2 donation from Laser. Thank you. Was our 9-1 start a whiff or is it a sign? Yeah, we were like 10-4 at one point. I don't remember being 9-1, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, people forget that in that stretch, several games come to mind. There was the Lakers game in LA. We were down 8 with a couple minutes left, and Russell Westbrook takes like a horrible mid-range shot with a lot of time still on the shot clock, and they probably could have just bled out the shot clock every possession and would have won. And it gave us the ball back, and I think Jeremy hits a big three. So like there's and then the Miami Heat game at Miami, the Josh Hart buzzer beater, they come back from a big deficit in the fourth quarter and have to have like a bunch of things go right, and then they just happen to hit the shot at the buzzer. The Phoenix game where Jeremy Grant travels, but they don't call it later. They call it a travel. But that was without Dame and Ant, and they got a win. I don't know. Maybe if Phoenix had that to do over with, maybe they didn't lay up there. So I don't know. That's like 3 of the games that just right off the top of my head that we won that we probably should have lost. And now it's gone completely the opposite way since that start. The 4 quarters have been brutal. I was looking at some numbers, and we're just like a terrible fourth quarter team. So yeah, it's just a case where yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was necessarily a mirage. Then you get injuries and stuff. It just would have taken no one getting hurt because like Dame got hurt and then he comes back and then he gets hurt again and is out longer. And then we still didn't have depth at any of those positions I talked about earlier, backup point guard or backup center. So when injuries started happening at those positions as well, this team just didn't have the capabilities of withstanding that. And then, Winslow's out for 3 months with an ankle sprain and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know if it was I don't know if it was like a mirage or anything, but like it definitely got people's expectations up, and it showed that they could be a good team. And that's what's been frustrating about the rest of the season, because they don't seem to play with that same energy on defense. And that was one of the things. I mean, they were at least a middle of the pack defense. Even when they started losing games, their defense was still okay. And it just hasn't gotten any better. And in fact, it's regressed. And now they can't stop anyone. And it seems like someone's open on every possession. And I don't know what the heck they're doing, man. It just doesn't seem like they're they're in a spot where they're improving. And that's another thing to me that falls back on the coaching, is if you have a team that looks like they're getting worse, not better throughout the season, even though you add some pieces that you would think would help your defense, and you have injuries to players like Anthony and Dame, who, if they're out of the game, should, like everyone says, we're a bad defensive team and will never be a good defensive team because of the small backcourt, right? So if they're missing games and we have a bigger lineup out there, it's same thing happened when like Josh Hart started at the 2. Some games, like, the defense didn't seem to be any better. So to me, that's coaching, schemes, game plans, scouting. It just seems like they're not doing anything to take teams out of their comfort zone. I felt like they did do that a little bit in the Philadelphia game, and I was impressed. But it's like, why are you only showing it every once in a while? Like, that's 2 games this year. The one against Dallas, the first one on the back-to-back where we beat Luka, and he had one of his worst games of the season because we were double-teaming him. And then I felt like they did some good things, at least in the first half of the Philadelphia game, with some interesting defensive schemes. But outside of that, there's no real like matchup based schemes and things like that. And that's really troubling to me, that they just let other teams basically dictate the flow of the game, who's going to score on their team and all that kind of stuff, and get whatever shot they want without us really ever reacting to that or trying to take them out of that comfort zone. Just completely puzzling to me. Shout out to Adzi Mac for an Australian $5 donation. Thank you so much, Adzi. Assuming Chauncey is here next season because Jody is a tight ass, what would you like to see from Billups for the rest of the season? That's a tough question because, like I said, if he is being told not to play certain people or not to do certain things, then I don't know how much he can do. If he's not being told that, basically what I'd like to see him do is, play guys evenly. Like Keon hasn't been great, but like put him out there as the backup point guard, and just when Dame or Ant misses a game, and let him sink or swim, so you know for sure next year if he should be on the team or not, or if you should just like salary dump him this summer or whatever. And then, unfortunately he can't really do anything about their center situation because he has no size. So it's almost like maybe he's rebelling against not getting any size at the deadline too, which is kind of funny. But I just want to, I don't know. To me, the rest of the season just comes down to Sharp's development. If we're not making the playoffs, I'd like to just see him get as many minutes as possible. I'd like to see some improvement from him. If he's missing assignments now, towards the end of the season, that's your job to teach him. Like, you should be helping him get better, not like just benching him every time he misses one assignment, because I just think that's a bad precedent he's setting when he's not doing that with any of the other players other than maybe Nas. So I just like to see him get a little bit more leeway to make mistakes out there, but then coach him on those mistakes and see if he can improve them, not just rip him out of the lineup every time he makes a mistake and only play him 3.5 minutes in a game where you're down by like 40 points at one point. Like, that's just freaking ridiculous in my opinion. So I'd just like to see him continue what he did well last year, I believe, and that's, developing some of the younger guys. If they're serious about making the playoffs and they're really trying to win, I'd like to see him actually have some game plans and some I don't know, pressure someone, use some of these new guys. Instead of playing them 40 minutes, split up the minutes evenly with everyone. But let's full court press or show some trapping half court stuff. Um, so that's what I want to see. Um, but yeah, it's I don't know. I've kind of given up on seeing anything from Chauncey, at least this season. And like I said, it sounds so stupid, but my only hope is that Chauncey is purposely not showing anything this season because he's going to be a great coach next season. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that's like the only sliver of hope that I have, is that he's somehow not coaching 100% because he's either mad about the trade deadline and them not getting what he wanted, or he's just doing what the front office wants him to do, and that's not win. Um, I just gotta hold out the sliver of hope that maybe next year, like his third year, he'll have some experience. And the other thing is too, the the thing with Stotts too is Stotts had two other jobs, head coaching jobs before this one. So this would be like Stotts' first job. So it's not like his third job or he's struggling and you can be like, yeah, Priest, I know he sucks. Like that's not what I've said Chauncey sucks several times. Like I'm just saying, like that's the only way I can think of that he could possibly turn it around. But yeah, so Stotts he was an assistant coach for a championship team in Dallas, and then he was a head coach in Atlanta and Milwaukee. Wasn't good at either of those stops necessarily. And so like he had experience and stuff, and so like if this was Stotts' first 2 years, maybe you get the injury excuse with Dame last year. I don't know if he would get an excuse the second year. But so and then I always go back to people like Bill Belichick, who was absolutely terrible with a roster in Cleveland. And he was like an under 500 coach, I believe. And then he gets the Patriots job. And then, you get Tom Brady and a really good roster, and all of a sudden you're the greatest coach of all time. And it's not necessarily the same, but like I do think there are scenarios where I mean, we talk about how this roster sucks. Like we talk about how the moves didn't make sense. We talk about how we don't give Dame any help. All that kind of stuff. Yet we expect Chauncey to make miracle out of this roster, like that's like so once again, I'm not saying he's been good, but at the same time, like if you did want to run a zone like say Cleveland runs with Evan Mobley, pressing up top, and he wanted to use like Jeremy Grant in that Evan Mobley mold, which is what he's kind of doing by putting Grant on the ball handlers all the time. Like he doesn't have the personnel to run that system, and he doesn't have the point of attack defenders like a Tayshaun Prince and like a Chauncey Billups, in that he had when he played in Detroit, and then he had great help defenders with, Rasheed Wallace and Ben Wallace. Those guys were great, like as a team unit playing, and they worked so well off each other. So I don't think he's been good, but I don't know if you got the right players for him to run the things he wants to run too. Like I don't know if that it might still be fixable. It's the only hope I have. And once again, I'm not saying that I think Chauncey will be good next year. I'm just hoping that somehow the roster just has a little bit of a tweak that just unlocks something in Chauncey, and that he's able to do some stuff that he wasn't able to do due to that lack of depth this year, or the lack of right kind of personnel. Um, I mean, if you give Chauncey the 2019 playoff team with like Aminu, Harkless, Zach Collins, Rodney Hood, that kind of depth. Um, I just think that maybe you would see a little bit more from him, but it might be wishful thinking too. But unfortunately, whether you like him or not, we're gonna have to see him next year. So, in my opinion, we'll find out. But basically, Dame's Dame's pressuring the front office. As a couple of days ago we talked about that last stream. So they're gonna they're going to they're going to probably make an all-in move. We'll see whether that's ends up being a good move or if they have to overpay and it once again unbalances the roster and then we don't have any depth once again. But in my mind, if they make a big move this summer and Chauncey's still coaching bad, he's just going to get totally exposed, and they'll have no choice but to make a move early in the season next year, even with the financial ramifications if it's not going well. So, but also they could, as Kyler Johnson says, they could get an Embiid or a Jimmy Butler who automatically makes any coach better and can single-handedly solve it. And but we'll see. Yeah, I don't. Crypto says he hasn't shown any passion. Yeah, I kind of, the laid back stuff is just not it. I don't think, especially when you talk about your whole motto is putting an address on it and accountability and all that stuff. So like, in my opinion, you can't say all that stuff and then not hold people accountable and then expect to be taken seriously. So I think that's where he messed up. Was he did not do a good job of holding people accountable, because they're still making mistakes that they made earlier in the season. And if you're a good coach that's holding people accountable behind the scenes, yeah, I just don't see how that. And it's not, accountability isn't necessarily like in the media. Like you don't have to like say, oh, Dame sucks on defense, he needs to do this better, like in a press conference or whatever. Like you have to, like, behind the scenes, you have to be teaching them and telling them and explaining it right, and getting them to change their style. So I always come back to this because I'm fascinated with this. And that's Jerry Stackhouse, the coach of Vanderbilt. And they made it all the way to the SEC semifinals or whatever. And I heard after the Alabama game, two nights ago, they had a interview with their head coach Nate Oates after the game, and Nate Oates was talking about, oh man, yeah, I have to go study film on all these stupid sets that Stackhouse runs, because like he just runs like a million offensive sets and stuff, and so like that's like super disciplined coach, but it's not like in a jerk way, like a Bobby Knight way or whatever. And then when I was breaking down film for Aaron Neesmith, who was from Vanderbilt, I really loved some of the sets they ran for him. And then I came across some stuff, and Aaron Nesmith actually went from being like an offensive only player to like a respectable defensive player in his time at Vanderbilt, and so much so that he hasn't even really shot the ball well at all in his career so far. But like he was still starting for Indiana a lot this year because of his defense, and so something that I heard them say was that Stackhouse, every single player that plays gets a defensive grade for each game. And so like if you miss a box out, like that's, negative points or whatever. And if you miss an assignment rotation, or you have a bad closeout, you get a bad grade on the closeout part of it. And then so he adds them all up and has like an overall grade. And then so I heard Neesmith talking about this, and Scottie Pippen Jr. was there too. So like I heard him say the same stuff last year. And that's like after a while, after getting called into his office, because like if you got below a certain grade, what's up, Shoop? How you doing, man? When you got called into his office, because if you got below a certain grade in a game, you would get called into his office, and you'd have to go over all the reasons why you got a low score and how you're going to fix them and what you need to do to improve them. And then so like all the players will then say, like 10, 15 games into the season, like the first 10 or 15 games, you're basically trying your best, but you might still mess up. But then by the 15th game or whatever, you were trying so hard not to mess up that, and you didn't want to get called into the coach's office, that it just became like natural. So like after 15 or so games, like you just were so like locked in and so focused on not messing up that it started to become a natural process, and you actually learned how to do it. So by the end of the season, you were like never having to get called into the office, because like you knew what to do and you knew how to avoid getting in coach's doghouse. And to me, that is coaching. That is accountability. What Chauncey's doing, it's selective accountability, and that never works in my opinion. Like, yeah, like obviously the best player, like for example, Brandon Miller at Alabama, with the gun thing. Like if he's like the 12th best player on Alabama, he's probably off the team, right? But he's their best player and a top 5 pick, so like he's going to get the benefit of the doubt, and they're going to keep playing him, right? I mean that's just the way things are in life. They're kind of unfair like that. Like I understand if Dame misses an assignment because he's scoring 71 points on offense, that it's not as critical as if Matisse Thybulle, who is there to be that defender, misses an assignment or is messing up. Like that's not what I'm saying, but the accountability thing has to be fixed. And it's got to be kind of for everything. So I just don't feel like Chauncey is even sticking to his actual philosophies and stuff. So that's where I get frustrated. Murray with an Australian $2 super chat. Thank you so much. Who should we expect to be traded going into 2024? That's a good question as well. Unfortunately, like a lot of our roster is free agents now, so I don't expect many of them to be traded, if any. So that pretty much leaves either you can combine like Knox if you pick up his team option, if you key on Nas and get someone in that like $15 million range maybe. Otherwise, it's going to have to be Sharp, Nurk, Ant, those kind of players that are traded because we don't really have any other contracts to trade. So I think we're going to have to either uh, you're either going to have to trade part of your core and just rearrange your core and hope that just magically fixes things, or you're going to have to come up with some sort of miracle trade, or go uh, just go young still and draft two players with your lottery pick and your Knicks pick that hopefully conveys, and then just take it from there. But yeah, I don't really know. Uh, Expecting to be traded. I don't think they're really gonna hit a home run, but I think what'll happen is they're gonna strike out on like all their main targets, and they're going to end up giving up Sharp and a bunch of picks and stuff to get like a above average player that they shouldn't have had to give up that much for just because Dame wants it to happen. So I'm kind of resigned to that being our our fate this summer. Um, do I think Brandon Miller would make an immediate impact on this team? 100%, yes. Like he would probably. Like I don't see how he could not be the starting small forward. Um, I do think he needs to do a better job at screen navigation, and but like overall, he's a pretty smart defender. He competes on that end. I think with the right coaching, he could become a good defender and the kind of defender we need, especially when he wouldn't be having to have such a uh, as much offensive burden for the Blazers that he does in Alabama right now. But I do think he could be a decent a decent defender, and I think he would immediately start right away. And I said this on Twitter the other day. I'm about as sure as him being a at least slightly above average player in the NBA is like anyone I can recently think of. So, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking like let's just say we got the third or fourth pick, and we traded it for say Mikal Bridges, along with Sharp or Nas or whoever else we had to include to get that. I could easily see a scenario where Brandon Miller is better than like Mikal Bridges and OG and those kind of players relatively quickly, like within a year or two. So that would also hurt considering what else we'd have to give up in those trades, just based on the contracts. Um, Let me get to the last donation. Thank you, Josh Sargent, who says, is there a better possible 2023 dream lineup than Dame, Sharp, Grant, Wembenyama, and Embiid? Um, I mean, obviously that lineup is freaking awesome. But yeah, I don't see how they get both Embiid and Wembenyama without giving up that pick. So I know Tori thinks it might be possible. Maybe they just another team or the Sixers are so high on Embiid that we somehow get him with Anthony and Nurkic and a bunch of future firsts. But without that lottery pick being the main piece in that trade, along with those guys, I just don't see how we get both of them. And I think getting one of the two would be amazing, let alone both. But yeah, I mean, obviously that would be a dream lineup. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, Wembenyama or Embiid are two of the guys, and I'm gonna get some bozo on Twitter telling me that all you ever talk about is Wembanyama. Like, you think we're actually going to get him? No, I don't think we're actually going to get him. Even in a best case scenario, we have what, a 10.5% chance if we make it all the way up to fifth. That's still an 89.5% chance. Just I'm recognizing that. I'm not saying we're definitely getting Wembanyama, but like those are two of the guys that could fix basically most of our problems. But yeah, so like, but I mean, short of that happening, it's going to be really hard. But yeah, if we get Wembanyama or the first pick, I think then Embiid would become realistic. But you have to give up that lottery pick to do it. So it'd be a question of which one do you want, Wembanyama or Embiid, not both. Yeah. Zach says it's statistically much more likely we get Embiid than Wemby. Yeah, I don't know about that, but we still need a lot of stuff to happen for Philadelphia too. Their defense hasn't been good recently, but we still need them to not only flame out in the playoffs, but we'd have to have Harden leave in free agency and Embiid request a trade. It's going to be really tough to get all three of those things to happen perfectly. I think that catches me up on all the super chats. Thank you so much to everyone who donated. Really appreciate the support. If you're not able to donate, that's totally fine too. Thank you for watching the show. If you're enjoying it, please leave a like. It does help out the channel. We don't really ask that much for likes outside of Gabe coming in here, but would appreciate any kind of support you guys show, and we love the community. We love all you guys for being in here, especially all of you that are in here almost every stream. Through the losses and the wins all season long. A lot of you in chat have been here through it all. Appreciate it. No, I'm not leaving. Sorry, I didn't mean to make it sound like a conclusion. Yeah, so what do you guys want to talk about? I really think that if Dame didn't make those comments in SI 2 days ago, I would for sure think that maybe they're now realizing that it's just not happening this year. So yeah, but I don't know. Yep. Okay. No Brant rant tonight. Nah, I mean, half daddy man. What am I gonna rant about? I mean, we suck. Like I've been saying, we suck. I don't know why. I'm not gonna like get super pissed when we're down 40. I mean, it sucks having to watch that crap because like last year, but yeah, it's fine. I mean, like best case scenario, we keep losing, so it's not a rant. It's that actually helps us out more than it is. Yeah, I've been on tank mode for a while. Why we see that's right. Yeah, I wasn't really tank mode. I was just like I was fine because I recognized how hard starting with this road trip that our season was going to be, and so thanks, Cole. Yeah, so like I knew how hard this season was going to be to finish up with this tough road trip outside of 2 games, which we won both of them. But yeah, so like if this team didn't figure it out and start playing defense, like I've been saying for months, like they weren't ever going to capitalize on this, and if they did want it bad enough, they could have started this process like 2 months ago and fixed the defense, started coaching better, brought in a little better back court or front court, help at the deadline, especially at power forward and center, and we could be going for it right now, but they didn't do that. So, yeah, there's no reason to get super worked up about them losing because they didn't make good enough moves at the deadline. Their coach isn't good enough, and the players aren't playing good enough defense for them to win, even with how easily they could just get it together, play well, start competing harder on defense, and make the playoffs. That at any point in the last 4 months, if they would have just not been in a funk and got their heads out of their butt, they could have easily been in the talking about home court advantage right now, not tanking and stuff. So yeah, a lot of good questions. Sorry if I miss any of them. It's gonna be hard because the chat's going so fast. I saw one that I wanted to answer. Let me try to find it. I can't listen to the Chauncey interview. Sorry. If you want to quote some of the things he said, I can comment on it. But Garben said, "So do you think we are keeping Sharp?" I'm starting to get this feeling that with Dame's comments, I mean, if he's expecting a big move, I just don't see really how we make a big move without trading Sharp. So I think that's going to be the crossroads this summer is, do you go for a win now trade using Sharp or not? And if that means that Dame is pissed off and not happy with the offseason, if we decide to keep Sharp or whatever. But this is my problem once again with the trade deadline, and it always comes back to the trade deadlines for me, is that even if we don't want to trade Sharp, how are we matching contracts without trading him? I just don't get what this team was thinking by not picking up guys with contracts that were tradable this summer when they easily could have done that. So to me, they're setting themselves up for the ultimate bad position where you either have to trade Sharp or basically keep the same roster. And I don't like them doing that or having to overpay with picks, on top of Nurkic or whatever. So I just think those are, when you continue to put yourselves in positions to not get as much value in trades because you're desperate, I just think that's the worst position you could be in. Armani asked, "Hey Eric, why doesn't Sharp start and play more?" Great question. I feel like when Dame sat out, Anthony gets hurt, Dame sits out, and he still didn't start against Sacramento. And I felt like when Anthony went down, that should have been the immediate thing, was bumping Sharp up to the starting two and just seeing how that went. And I feel like Chauncey kind of lost him a little bit for a couple weeks once he didn't play him. And then I think he only played 13 minutes or 10 minutes or something in that game on top of not starting or getting scrapped from the starting lineup right away. It just makes no sense to me, how a team that's this bad and this horrible is not prioritizing getting the most out of him right now. Because you can see how, do you need to play Cam Reddish 40 minutes to see what you have in him? Play him 20 to 25 minutes and get more minutes for Sharp too, because he's actually on the team next year. Same with Nas. Get Nas some minutes, see if he can actually start to show you something, a reason for not starting him or not. And Nas had some good moments tonight too. But Like, I just don't understand prioritizing guys that might not be on the team next year for what? To like pay him, to have to pay him more this summer? Like, this organization just does not make any sense to me. I don't get it. Like, if you're going the sharp route with the draft and you're not trading that pick, you have to get him developed as fast as possible, whether he's ready or not. Like, what better time is there than right now to give him minutes and let him work through some of those things, get the repetitions on the floor? Like, I don't. There's never going to be a better opportunity for this, because if you're going to be better next year and win, yeah, Sharp should be better too. But like, you're missing out on him having these developmental minutes right now. So I don't get it either, man. I just don't understand when it comes to Sharp, man. MKS, what do you think happens if we get number two? Do we keep Scoot? I think we try to trade back a spot or two. Just field offers for someone that really likes Scoot. I think there will be plenty of suitors for that pick. I think that'll probably open the door to players that we wouldn't get if we were like the 8th or ninth or 10th pick or whatever we end up being. So yeah, I think we're fine. If we get number two, I think it'll open up a lot of trade possibilities. But once again, you gotta give up contracts if you're gonna match like Siakam or Mikal Bridges or something. So it's not just the number two pick; you also have to give up other stuff, which is also frustrating for me, because if we had like Wiseman in the number two pick, we could basically say, if you want the number two pick, you're gonna take Wiseman, Knox, and Keon or whatever for Mikal Bridges, or like, I'm not saying we trade number two for Mikal, but just hypothetically, like, we could name a player like that, and we could say, no, you're taking these contracts too, or we're just going to keep the number two pick and call their bluff. And so, but now that's out of the question. Now it's like, well, if we give you Sharp, you have to give us more than just Mikal and for number two as well. And like, all these scenarios now are getting frustrating even thinking about. AJ, who's your new draft crush after watching one game? Johnny asks, do you think Dame's loyalty will end up making a return to successful basketball take longer? Not asking if Dame should leave or request a trade. I I firmly believe that Dame has propped this organization up to a level that they uh, feel like they're better than they are, or haven't had to make the moves because Dame always pulls them out or always has that run in him, like he said, outside of being hurt last year and not being able to. So I think it's a case where I just want to see this guy play with some better talent and with like a team that has two legit centers. It doesn't even have to be like a good backup center. It could be a rookie center like Derek Lively or something. But like, we just need someone who has some defensive prowess around the rim, can quick jump, can block shots, protect the rim, good help defender. Like, just give this guy some help, and some wings that are good on both ends of the floor. Like, it doesn't have to be crazy. But yeah, I don't think it's Dame's loyalty that's preventing that, because he makes the same percentage of the cap. It's continually getting, outside of the Grant trade, it's continually getting worse when you're trading a better player for a worse player, better player for worse assets, better player for no assets. Those kind of moves are the frustrating part. And then you say you stockpiled all these picks or whatever, which does open up some things, but then I keep going back to not having the contracts to make a lot of those things work. So I think it's been a failure of both GMs now, whether it's their fault or not, due to Jody maybe not letting them do more. But I just think that when you continually get less value in return for trades than you could have possibly gotten, it's tough to recover from that when you are trying to build around a player that's you know, at the tail end of his prime, and he's been phenomenal, but I just don't think they put the right pieces around him. And we thought, Grant would be a good piece, and he's been not very good outside of a couple games last couple months. So hopefully he can get it back on track at some point. I think we've seen now 2 games flashes from Anthony Simons being able to do some unreal things and just improving his game so much. I still think Anthony is fine as his backcourt mate. I don't know how else to do it without getting at least one time seeing Dame with just a really good balanced team. And the one time he did have a good balanced team towards the end of 2019, it was unfortunate that Nurk got hurt, but that team was loaded. I mean, he had a Seth Curry off the bench for shooting. Shooting's been a problem with the bench unit this year. You had a defensive-minded backup 4 or 5 in Zach Collins, who Zach, I think, had like 20 and 11 or something today, like a really good game from Zach, and he's been playing well. So like, I just, until you get him some players that can just compete and kind of, I mean, you're never going to find really someone, unless you get really lucky, at his level, but just players that can help him be the best he can be while also helping propel things like defense and stuff. And unfortunately, every move that the Blazers have made going back pretty much 11 years has been, kind of either middling or hasn't worked out. Even if it was a good move at the time, in hindsight, it didn't look like a good move. Like trading for a Flalo and then West gets hurt and things like that. Like they just can't seem to push the right buttons. So hopefully Cronin can figure that out, because I don't think he's going anywhere. But I mean, he even said it himself. It's easy to tear down a team. It's way more harder to build it back up. So when he tore it down and then doesn't seemingly have the right plan to fix it, it's just kind of frustrating. But I don't blame that on Dame's loyalty. If anything, we're still relevant because of that loyalty. Pim Rose, thank you so much for the $10 donation. Would Mark Price be on your top 10 greatest shooters of all time? That's kind of a random question. I don't know top 10, but yeah, he's definitely up there. Those Cleveland Cavalier teams back in the late 80s were a lot of fun, with him and Craig Elo, Brad Doherty, Larry Nance Sr. I liked watching those teams, and Price was a tremendous shooter. If he played today, probably be considered a much better shooter than he is. He kind of gets forgotten about with all the good point guards of the 80s. But yeah, he was really solid. I think he is, I don't know where he's at now, but I know at the time he was way up there in terms of free throw percentage too. One of the best free throw shooters of all time as well. But yeah, it's just such a weird era. It's hard to compare, because like you look at Larry Bird's stats and it like, oh, he's considered a good shooter. He only shot like 30% from 3. How is that a good 3-point shooter? But then like, I don't know if you watched him play, he was an unreal shooter, and like I'd put him up against just about anyone shooting the basketball. So always weird to compare eras like that, especially with how 3 happy. Because like Anthony Simons is on track to be one of the best 3-point shooters of all time. I just saw Paul George, I think, became, I want to say, the 10th player or something like that, 9th or 10th player to have more than 2003s in their career or something weird like that. It's like, I mean, Paul George is a good shooter, but he's not like great or anything, and now he's top 10. So I don't know. It's just it's hard to compare, but yeah, I think he'd be in your in the conversation. And thank you for the $10, Pim. Um, Bouquet has asked, would Mark Jackson be on your top 10 mama, there goes that man list? I mean, he's got to be number one for inventing it, right? Or coming up with the phrase. I just scrolled up to get questions, Tori. I wasn't super behind, but then I got caught up with some questions, and yeah. Uh, Josh asked, would I rather have Embiid on the team or Uncle Phil as owner? Oh, I I would take the player just because Dame and Embiid would be so good together. So I would take Embiid and just live with the ownership situation. That's really tough, but I mean, if you pass up on Embiid, you're kind of it's going to be tough to get like a new owner in here and up to speed, and then like going all in. Like maybe I I, I mean, how are you going to find another player as good as Embiid? So uh, I think I think we're just I think I take my chances with Embiid and a horrible front office ownership, and just hope that David and Embiid can go out there and recruit some ring chasers on their own to come join them, and then we wouldn't even have to worry about bad ownership. I think that would probably be the best outcome. Yeah. Jared asked, at what point does Silver force his hand and have to step in with Jody not honoring the trust and imploding the team? Um, I don't necessarily know what you mean, because like if she has to sell the team by a certain date, she has to sell it by that date. So that date obviously has not come yet. So um, there's obviously a lot of people say there is a drop dead date where she has to sell the team by for the trust. Um, I've heard that could be anywhere from later in 2023 to 10 to 20 years now, if you believe Jody. So, um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think Silver can do anything. And there's plenty of other owners that are cheap and don't want to pay the tax and stuff. So you can't make her step down for that. But what I'd say, if Silver really wants Phil Knight to be the owner of the Blazers, like he really implied when he had that press conference shortly after we heard of that offer, um, then he's got to tell his boy Phil to up the offer, because it was a low ball offer, and until Phil gives a better offer that's more than a little over 2 billion, when other teams are being evaluated at $3.5–4 billion, I mean, that's just not going to get it done. So until Phil comes with a better offer, I just don't think anyone could force her to sell until whatever that date becomes. If we ever learn when that date actually is. Uh, Max asked, is Tori getting a new shaver? Is that why he's not here? I mean, that part of the season seems so far ago, like so long ago, man. When we were still hopeful and winning and stuff. Yeah. Khalid asks, why do they continue to play zone defense? Just curious, dude. I don't freaking know, dude. I don't get it. Gimmicky gimmicky defense that got figured out like a month into the season, and they're still running this basic zone defense. It's not even, they don't even like pressure, they don't trap out of it, they don't rotate well with it outside of the Philly game in the first half. Like, I don't understand why they do it either. And I wish I had a better answer for you, but yeah. Ripsy Alice says Dame can't really say anything, even if they were tanking, goes against his MO, and it's not something the league would want to hear. Yeah, but I don't think he would then come out and say we're not tanking or like we're still going for the playoffs and stuff. He would just, I think he would just say, yeah, we're definitely we're not, we're not tanking, but we're not like we understand we have to play better to get there and stuff. Like I don't know, but yeah, I mean there could be a little bit of truth to that. So Jared has a Chauncey quote. I think this is Chauncey. Hopefully, this is not paraphrasing or anything, but we just got to be better about having urgency. We can't be looking for help. We need to be a willing participant in our own rescue. We got to be playing basketball. Okay. Cool. What a quote, man. Chiefin, what's up, man? He says, Eric, can we tank and get Brandon Miller? F the playoffs. Yeah, so, I mean, you can look up the lottery odds, Chiefin. At this point, even with the gun situation, it looks like Brandon Miller, I mean, at worst, is going to go 4. It's going to be 3. Most likely he'll go. Now I think he's pretty much, if you, we haven't talked about Kevin O'Connor today yet, but he's back to his Nurk-hating ways. And then, so that would be the third pick we'd have to get to get him probably. So yeah, it's just if we're at 6th, 7th, 8th, whatever number we finish, we'd have to move up in the lottery into the top 4, and then we'd have to be probably 3. So unless we get 4 and the other team takes him in or us here, that's pretty much the only way. So yeah. AJ, I'm sorry I missed who your guy is now. I think we'll keep our second round pick. Maybe, yeah. We'll probably need a cheap end of the bench salary, so I'll probably take it. If Chauncey gets fired and packing, who do you want hired? Let's go with Jerry Stackhouse. Yeah, that's who I want then. Yeah. Would be nice to have Mike Brown. I don't know if you guys caught it, but Mike Brown, off a win, spent over a minute talking about how they needed to be better, and even though they won the game, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I was all for the, up and coming, take a swing at a big, high upside coach that could really come in and get the guys' attention. Yeah, so I think it would be possible. Mike Brown really didn't want to coach for us. Yeah, I don't even know if we did it, but I did like the swing for the upside. But I don't. From here on out, I think at least the next coach should probably be, if they're still going for it with Dame, needs to be someone that has a little bit more experience. Mac Mole says, I want the guy Atlanta just hired, used to coach for Utah. That's Quinn Snyder. They paid him $8 million a season, so I mean the Blazers aren't going to pay that. That might be the other thing too. Was Olshey limited on his budget for hiring a coach, and why was that coach allowed to bring his brother in and all that kind of stuff? So would I do when Wembanyama for Embiid if we got the number 1 pick? The problem is, I would do that trade straight up. But now we're talking, we probably have to do not only the number one pick, but then we have to give up Anthony and Nurk. So we're not just trading the number one pick, we're also trading Anthony on top of that. So, uh, yeah, it'd be tough. But, I mean, if you could get Embiid, he's the he's the I don't know. Me personally, I probably just keep Wembenyama and hope like heck you got something, but I it's really close to 50-50 for me. Like I wouldn't a guy like Embiid, who's a top five player at worst in the NBA, can also score over 30 points per game, good defender, all that kind of stuff. I think he's a game changer too. So I I just I think either way you're really you're fixing the problems for next season. But yeah, but yeah, as Bcase points out, he's passing on Jordan, Kevin Durant, and then if Wemby becomes a generational player as well, that's just tough. Reese asked if Nerlens Noel was in this draft. Would he go high? No, I don't think so because he fell to like fifth or sixth in his particular draft because of a lot of nitpicking about some of his lack of offensive skills and stuff. And I don't know. I see guys like Derek Lively and Khalil Ware and um, Deron Holmes and stuff like that. Christian Coloco last year. I don't think all those guys are projected to go, mid to late first to early second. So I think Nerlens would probably be in that range, like late first if he was. Eli says, would you rather have Scott Brooks over Chauncey? Heck no, that might be part of the problem too. I think my hope is that Chauncey, if he's kept around, has to maybe clear out his staff and get some better coaches because I don't think they're serving him very well either. Um, Boglehead says pretty wild how a Hall of Fame point guard such as Chauncey can be such buns as coach. Yeah, I mean we see it all the time. Jason Kidd was terrible. Uh, he had a good year last year, obviously, in his first year in Dallas, but they've not been as good this year. They did make some trades and stuff, so we'll see. Yet to be determined on that. Magic Johnson was awful as a coach and a commentator. Sometimes that's the problem when you're really good at something. Oftentimes uh, it's hard to then teach people um, like Kobe, for example. He has like this insane work ethic and drive and stuff. And if you want to compare that maybe to a player like Jimmy Butler in the NBA right now, who's shows up at like 3 a.m. for workouts and things like that. Like there's just like you can't teach that level of drive. Like you can force someone to come into the gym and work with you at 3 a.m. and you can force someone to like try to play the way you played, but if you don't have the IQ and the dedication, the focus to be great, it's just really hard to just carry someone to do that. And basically, as a coach, I mean, when you're on the floor, like Dame can, someone blows a defensive assignment, Dame can go down and hit a 30-foot three and make up for it. But when you're the coach, you can't do that. So, yeah, like, or you can't even like help them on defense because, you're not on the floor. So just, that was my one real concern when they hired Chauncey. If you go back to some of the streams very early in his tenure, I said the only way I could see the Chauncey thing really not working out is if he just can't figure out a way for his philosophies to translate onto the floor. And unfortunately, that pretty much panned out just like that. Um, Ari Bluffstone says, Eric, what do you think about packaging Shea and our first to move up into the top four? Um, I don't really like that at all. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe if we're far enough back and can get up there, but I don't think many teams are going to be trading a top four pick this year outside of a team like the Blazers, who are like think they're better than they are, that are going for winning next year versus long term potential, because the ceilings on the guys in this top part of the draft are just insane. Like even a guy like shout out to Reese for sending me this tweet earlier, but just summed up really well that like Wemby's like a generational prospect. Scoot's like a once every other year type prospect, and then Brandon Miller is like a once a year type prospect. And then that doesn't even include the Thompson twins, who get kind of hidden because they played for Overtime Elite, and so like not a lot of people know about them or know how their games will translate. But those guys, if we're just talking about upside and ceiling, have like insane ceiling. So that's five players right there that are could be like star level players in the NBA. So yeah, so this draft's really tough. I don't think there's going to be much like trading up and back, at least with the first 4 or 5 picks, unless it's a team that gets lucky from the back half of the lottery and moves up, or Portland moves up. All right. Alex says, who do you like with the New York pick? I'm pretty much locked into Derek Lively right now. I just think he, like a defensive big who can protect the rim, block shots, good timing on block shots, good positional defender, can somewhat move his feet and stay in front of defenders on the perimeter. That combined with some of the flashes he's shown on offense, both just in the pick and roll as a short roll, just making the right pass out of that, and then also, as a lob threat that we haven't really had from a big man. We obviously have that now with like Sharp and things like that, but we haven't really had a lot of just quick jumping lob threats around the rim in terms of bigs for a while. So I would really want someone like that with our second pick if we get both. Can we package anyone in the Knicks pick to possibly get a top 15 pick? I don't think they're going to be doing anything like that. Um, I I just I think then it gets tricky with trading out a contract, and then you don't really have much contracts to trade. So if you waste one in that scenario, um, I just and then I don't see like players like Keon or whatever having value to go from like 22 to 15 if you combine them right now. So I'd be really surprised if we made a trade like that. What's up, Solar Money? How you doing, man? Nick Thompson says to sign Derek Favors and waive Ryan Archie Diacono. Yeah, it's not happening. Not happening. We're not signing anyone, so yeah, Zach Collins would be good to come back as well. We're not sending Lillard to the Celtics. Sorry, business as usual. Al Max says, was Josh Hart sold too cheap? Yes and no. I do recognize that getting a first round pick when not many players that were traded got a first round level pick back outside of, Durant and stuff. But I mean, if we were trying to win this year, giving up our starting small forward for someone that could have been had for a second round pick and just absorbed into our trade exception at any point this season. And then also, I don't think that's the best use of our assets. If we could have made that trade, gotten like a Hartenstein back, along with Josh Hart, or along with that first. I've heard from several people that the Blazers just refuse to take anyone back in any trades short of if it was like a star player. Like they tried to get Mikal Bridges and they tried to get, OG players like that who have a contract next year. But short of getting a player like that, they would have they just weren't willing to take on salary in trades. And to me, that signifies that unless a miracle trade happens, they might be just going to re-sign Grant and maybe re-sign Thibault and Reddish and try to duck the tax again next year, which is really frustrating. But yeah, yeah. So I don't know what they're going to do, man, but they could have then had that Hartenstein contract. And not only that, but that gives them a legit backup center this year that might even push Nurk for some minutes starting or whatever. So that's where it gets frustrating. Nick Thompson says, "Cool Blazers t-shirt. I like all your Blazers gear." Thanks, man. I got a bunch of shirts. It's like my mom has season tickets up in the 300 levels. So back in the day when they were actually making the playoffs and good, but used to go to a lot of games and get all kinds of free t-shirts and stuff. And then, of course, you buy shirts and stuff along the way. But yeah, I am the same. Well, I put on a lot of weight over the years, but most of the same shirts fit me like 10, 15 years ago. So a lot of my Blazer shirts are just accumulating over that time. Matt V asks, "Is Grant a player worth $30 million? Will this not matter as much with the new CBA and increased cap?" It'll definitely matter when you pay a player like Grant $30 million if he doesn't come close to that. But unfortunately, Portland, with the moves they made, I think they just put themselves in a position where you have to pay him if that's what it costs. And if they lose Grant for nothing, I think that's worse than if you pay him and have to overpay. So, yeah, it's just tough. No, Connor, the other guy did not give up. He just couldn't be here this evening. But thanks for your concern. Eric Olson says you should say muscle. Eric sounds better. Well, no, it's not muscle. So it is absolutely fat because I drink too much soda. But yeah, I don't have the best diet. And unfortunately, I would love to be able to play a lot more basketball and exercise a lot more, but my body's breaking down, my knees and stuff. So, but yeah, what a stream for Tori to not be here on this freaking game, man. We get our butt kicked and yeah. Like, what am I supposed to say other than we suck tonight, right? Eric Olson, I saw your question earlier too. Who would I take, Amen or Miller? If we're keeping the pick and being serious and still trying to win with Dame, I'm taking Miller. If we're just going for like biggest upside, I'd consider Amen there. But I think I'd just take Miller and plug him in at the 3 and yeah. I don't think it's that like a more positive. I think it's just more chill when it's one person here. Like if you saw Tori on a stream by himself, he's usually a lot calmer too because we don't get to vent our frustration back and forth. But yeah. But no, it's just the other thing is too. I mean, people always say that like, oh, we're too negative or whatever. Like, I keep asking these people who say that, like, what is there possibly positive to say, or like what, like, how can we not be negative? And it just like we or Tori started this channel in the off season of 2020 or 2019, right after we had that Western Conference Finals run, and we just been like crapped on as fans ever since then. Like we we sucked that next year. Rodney Hood tears his Achilles. Zach Collins goes down. The team is actually looking pretty good, even with Whiteside. And then they were going to get Nurk back at some point, and then COVID happens, and then and then we signed Melo, and that was kind of fun for me. I know Tori gets frustrated with some of the people who came in here because of the Melo stuff, and then Scal plays so good that he like Stas has no choice but to start him at the power forward spot, and the first game he starts, he goes down with an injury. So, and then the trade deadline, we have, I mean, it was clear that everyone talks about 2016 off season with Olshey. No, man, it was the trade deadline of 2020 when Neil Olshey decided to not trade Hassan Whiteside's expiring contract. It was like $27 million or something like that. Could have traded it and got completely under the tax. Avoided the tax that year. It would have affected them being able to say the repeater tax after that. And then we could have brought in someone that was good. You could have like traded him for like, say, Nicholas Batum, who still had a couple years left, but was making like 20, like the same contract, and he was on a max deal. But like you could have gotten maybe like a first or something with that. And then to, or like an Otto Porter Jr. at the time was making about the same money. There was like a bunch of trades. Like we talked about this for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then this guy Olshey gets up there and be like, why would we trade Whiteside? He's leading the league in blocks and rebounds. He's like the best center in the NBA. And like this is like a week or two like Nurk was supposed to be back, so like it wouldn't have been that bad. So like I got really frustrated. If you go back and watch those streams from that trade deadline in 2020, and then we go to the bubble and go 6-2, but in a lot of those games it was just like we didn't play well. We just won. And then we make the playoffs, and we win the first ever play-in game against Memphis. That was cool. And then we go up 1-0 against the Lakers, and then the rest of that series was horrible. Dame gets hurt and all that. And then we re-sign Melo that offseason. We bring Cantor back that offseason. We trade for Rocco. So like things are positive, but then, like none of it matters. We're still terrible on defense. And then Stotts insists on bringing in Cantor and Melo, and even up until the playoffs in together, even though they get abused on defense every single time they came in. And that's the season we got we're 29th in defense with him and 29th in defense without him. And then, and then, I mean, we're still the 8th seed, so like it wasn't that big of a deal. But then that season we were, that was the season we ended up trading for Norm, I think, right? Or am I missing a season? So we lose to the Nuggets. That was that season, right? I'm not missing a season. I don't remember. Yeah, we got a, like, I don't know, the Norm trade worked out. We won, I think, like 11 to 12 or something, and then we're playing really good, and we go in the playoffs, and like no one can make a shot outside of Dame, and it's just so weird. And then we fire Stotts finally, so we are positive about that. And then Dame goes to the Olympics, and he just is shot when he comes back, and like it was obvious early in the season that something was wrong, and he just was not himself. And people were trying to say, uh, uh, yeah, people were trying to say that um, I don't remember, but anyways, yeah, we just, and then we hire Billups, but like I thought it would be good coaching wise, but then you have to deal with all the off the court stuff, and then Olshey was just freaking terrible in every press conference. He was all defensive, and it was just horrible. And then we freaking finally fire him, and we replace him with Cronin, and then the trade deadline last year, and then we waste our mid-level exception on someone who just took the money this year. And yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's just, we didn't have a backup center. Like, I don't know, it's just so much stuff has happened. And then they keep saying they're competing and they're doing it, but then their GM says they're not. And I don't know, it's weird. um so yeah, it's just there's a lot of stuff, and it's just one thing after another. And I'm not like a professional person that has to be neutral or overly positive or whatever. I don't have to polish turds if I see turds. Like I've always said this. I'm a fan. I'm 43 years old. I've loved the Blazers since as far back as I can remember as a little kid in the 80s. And like I so I don't really um, I don't really think of it as being positive or negative. I just say how I feel as a fan, and that's what this is. And I understand that some people don't like that, and that's totally fine. Like I'm never gonna get mad at someone who wants to go watch someone who's only positive and only tries to spin every single thing that happens in the best possible light. That's totally cool if that's what you like, but don't try to tell Tori and I that we shouldn't be something that we aren't. Like we just want to be ourselves and talk about the Blazers and stuff. So yeah, so that's just how I look at it. I just come on here and talk about what I watch when I watch games, what I'm looking for, what I look for in trades, what I look for in terms of the CBA and salary cap and things like that, how they can set themselves up to make better moves. And it's frustrating, but like I don't know, I just, anyone who thinks we're too negative, I'd just like to ask, like, outside of watching Dame score like 71 points, like what's been fun since early on in the season this year. Okay, says our next big move is trading for CJ to return. That'd be funny. Yeah, I don't know if trading McCollum was the mistake. It was just like going back to that. Like if you just have better protections on that pick, they were willing to give us a lottery pick as long as it didn't move into the top four. So like if they didn't make the playoffs and it was like the 12th pick or whatever, we could be talking about having like Jalen Williams right now, like who's insane, right? Like you could have him and Sharp. So like the dude's averaging like 25 and 5 this month um, for the Thunder. He's been playing awesome. Yeah. Nick Thompson says Brian Wheeler's GoFundMe is up to 43,000. That's impressive. Jody Allen cricket still. Yeah, dude. The the fact that the fans have to support him for doing that, and the Blazers didn't step in. Yeah. Yeah, that's the other thing, Tori. He says, I was optimistic almost all season too. Yeah, Tori, even when we started losing and we're going through some tough stretches, like how many times did you hear Tori say, like, uh, how many times did you hear Tori say, like, oh, don't worry, like, I told you guys before the season that for as long as we were like 500 at this point, it would still be okay, and I don't think the defense is bad, and all that stuff. Yeah, what happened to Wheels is he is having some health problems. I think it's still stemming from some of the health problems he had when he was still an announcer. And he was going to lose his house, I believe, along with basically everything else while he was in the hospital and not able to afford medical bills and his mortgage and all that stuff. It just disheartening that someone within the organization hasn't stepped up and just made sure he was taken care of as one of the I mean obviously he's not Seanley level, but I mean outside of Seanley it's hard to find a guy who did it for as long as he did and who was as passionate about the organization, who did so much for people in the organization as Wheels did, and just a really good guy. And so hopefully he pulls out of it and everything's okay and can get his life back on track. But dude, that guy was an amazing like play-by-play guy, and it was always weird because I grew up with Sean Lee, so I had a little bit with this, admittedly, with Calabro as well, but like your legends get replaced, and you don't want to like ever give the new person as much credit because there's like the reason why that people came up, and so but Wheels, like, man, it was so fast that he just became a Blazer, like by the end it felt like he was a Portland Trailblazer, and I always have respect for people like that. But it was always funny, like turning on the radio, like because like back in the day, like there were times when not every game was on TV, or you didn't have access to recording them or whatever. But you could always just turn on the radio, and within like 3 seconds, just the tone in his voice, you could tell if the Blazers were doing well or bad, or if they were losing, or what was going on in the game, if the refs were terrible or what. Like you just like all you had to hear was like a few syllables out of him, and you would instantly know whether it was going well or not. And it was just that guy who got really emotional. Like I'm surprised he didn't have some more health problems while announcing games, because kind of like me, he was very emotional and got really up and down with the team's success. And I fully admit it's unhealthy. I do the same thing. Like it bugs me when the team loses, unless it benefits them to lose, like if they get a high lottery pick. But yeah, like when like all their playoff failures and stuff like that, I get really upset and sad. I've broken my fair share of things, and I know it's not it's not healthy to do that kind of stuff. But yeah, I've always been the kind of guy who goes up and down with the Blazers, especially. Yeah, that's like I can't imagine outside of my family achievements, like wedding and birth of kids and watching them excel at things. Short of that, like I can't imagine a better feeling than watching the Blazers win an NBA championship, especially if it's with Damian Lillard. I mean, I don't know how I could handle that emotionally. Like I'd be so happy, like I'd be like sad, like it'd be crazy. And I got kind of that way a little bit with when Giannis won, just seeing him when he went and sat in that chair and just he finally did it, like that was like like you just felt so good for the guy. It's like he stayed in Milwaukee, he got over the top and stuff. Like I can't imagine like watching another team with Milwaukee doing that. How good that felt for Giannis, or like even like LeBron when he went back to Cleveland, that type of thing. Um, and won a ring for them. Like, can you imagine sitting there with Dame on the floor with his hands in the air after they won the championship, man? Like that's crazy. I can't imagine what that would be like. So a lot of my frustration or negativity comes from like the fact that they're running out of opportunities to ever have that moment or even like a chance to have that moment, and that's like frustrating to me. So yeah, like if the Western Conference Finals run in 2019 is all we ever get in terms of like actual serious run with like I wouldn't say a legitimate chance, but like you make it to the final four teams, like you have a chance. But like it's just a situation where it's always going to be depressing as a Blazer fan if we never even gave him another player capable of helping him achieve that in his career, and that's also why I think they're gonna maybe overpay this summer before it's too late. But I just worry that they're gonna do so in a panic move on a player that's not quite good enough to help him get there. But yeah, I mean, I'm still going to be a fan whether they make it or not, and I'll always love Dame whether he wins a championship or not because he shows that same love to Portland. So I think he has earned that respect back. Reese asked what Chef Eric was cooking for the kids for dinner. The kids are actually just went to bed because it's a school night, but my wife made dinner tonight. I think she made spaghetti. Yeah, I'll have to eat after stream because I was watching the game and then had to stream when it happened. In case you missed it, the Blazers lost to the Celtics tonight, 115-93. Yeah. Uh, just kidding. Couldn't figure out how to change it. Khalid asked, do you think there's still a shot at the playoffs, realistically speaking? I mean, until they're eliminated or more than a couple games out of making the play-in, like, I wouldn't put it as unrealistic. So yeah, I don't. I mean, I don't see how this team playing the way they're playing right now can possibly do that. Like, if they would have came out tonight and maybe played like they did in the first half against Philly, outside of making 50% of their threes, I'd say maybe they could turn a corner, but the schedule's so hard, and yeah, so yeah, I mean, so until they get like 4 or 5 games out of the play-in, I still think realistically they're gonna go for it and stuff. But right, so our next five are New York, Boston, Clippers, Utah, Chicago. What do you think our record is? I think we're probably looking at like 2-3. Bry, how can I word this? Most of them are basically just hoping what Dame said is that like hopefully an opportunity comes up to do that, um, to make a big move. But I I don't think a lot of people, including one of my main sources, knows uh, how hard that's going to be with the position they put him in. It's just they have a bunch of picks doesn't mean you can just go out and trade for whoever. Still have to match contract. Is there a non All Star you could add to this team to make them a legit contender? I mean, there's lots of guys who are younger that will probably be all stars one day, like an Evan Mobley type player, but those players aren't like realistic to get. Um, so uh, I still think I don't know. Mikal Bridges, I think, is going to be an overpay situation where I think you can live with the trade, but the results in like 3 or 4 years when you don't win a championship with Mikal and you're watching like Sharp and Amen or uh, Brandon Miller be like better than Mikal in like 3 years. Um, like those kind of situations, like I don't know, like those are going to be tough. The one guy I keep coming back to that may be gettable that could possibly break out. He was showing that he had just insane level of growth in terms of pulling up on the dribble, shooting the ball, and is also a good defender, and that's Devin Vassell. So if you could find a way to get him for cheaper than it would be for um, OG or Mikhail or whatever, and you don't have to give up as many assets to get him. Maybe you only give up like 2 or 3 firsts or something instead of 4 or 5 or a lottery pick or something. Then you're talking about someone who could possibly come in as a starting three and be good on both sides of the ball. So I think those are the kind of moves you got to look at if if you're the Blazers, that kind of lower risk in terms of just like giving up your entire future, but also have upside if they keep developing. And obviously, Vassell has a good work ethic to improve that much in just a couple years. But um, because that's his Bridges that good. He seems super overrated, but I haven't watched enough of the Suns. I mean, he's been really good since he went to the Nets. Like, um, I wouldn't say like best player on a good team, good, but he's maybe shown that instead of just like a role player, he could be a second or third best player for sure. And we already have Dame, so we just need that second or third best player. Uh, let's make it simple and straight for LeBron. Well, that's the other problem. I mean, LeBron makes 40 plus million, so that's not going to be simple. Yeah, I don't know if they necessarily want to trade him. I'm just saying like that's a guy you could maybe get. You still have to overpay a little bit for, but it's not as bad of an overpay as someone else, but has the potential to be just as good. Um, and maybe some of his injury issues this year. Maybe maybe they either move up in the draft and get someone at a position he plays, or they like someone better, or it's a scenario where we get 2 or 3 and they really like someone, and they fall back to 5 or 6 and they want to move up, and that's how we uh, you know get them to move up. But yeah, I'm not saying like that's our only option or whatever, but like that's someone who I definitely look after. Jake Sports asks, "Is Ibubaji healthy yet?" Nope. The team announced he was out for like 6 weeks or something. He had a knee procedure, so he is out for this season basically. Yeah. So and yeah, he's not eligible to play in the playoffs. So even if they make the playoffs, they cannot play him or uh, John Butler. So yeah, the Baji thing is over for this season. The only way I will spin this in a positive way is that the fact that they didn't cut him, if they continue to have that be the case for the rest of the season, where they do not waive him and they keep him on the team. You saw earlier in the season when Olivier Sarr, was that his name? Yeah. When he was cut, um, or when he was injured, they cut him to bring in Baji. Um, so I think if it's the case where they were not happy with his development or didn't think he had long term potential, that they would just let him go right now, and bring in someone who can come in and be an able body, or take a chance on a different young guy out of the G League or something. But the fact that they're not doing that leads me to believe that they definitely are looking at keeping him this summer. So that would be the only positive thing, is if you still believe in Baji, that it seems like the team still sees something in him as well. So I guess a positive out of him not playing at all. But yeah, it's just a bummer that, we're gonna end up being in the lottery most likely, and that we had this guy on our roster, but we never even got to see him play in an actual game. So yeah. Are they grooming Baji to replace Nurk? Dude, no. They wouldn't have a two-way guy who's never even played an NBA game for them be like the plan to replace their starting center. So yeah. The thing with Wiseman is they just did not want salary next year. So yeah. Yeah, Vassell could run the three. He's kind of a long, lanky 6'5", so I don't think he's to be any problem with the three. Um, has he been hurt all season? No, just the second half of the season. AJ says they don't understand their plan for John Butler. I think it's probably the same way. So basically, they can be two-way guys got kind of get screwed. Um, so the Blazers can basically just kind of force them to re-sign as two ways next year, which we'll see if that's what happens or not. But I'd expect at least one of those two to be back on a two-way. But yeah, you can also um, offer them a qualifying offer and make them, restricted free agents, and then you basically sign them to a minimum this summer too if you want them on the actual roster. But why not keep Sarr over Butler? Is because Sarr was hurt. If this would happen and we get Wemby, how do you think we do next year? I think we'd be really good, assuming that was our only move or whatever. Yeah, adds some depth with the tax mid level. Um, Maybe make a good trade or two elsewhere. But yeah, I think so. Because well, that's my point, AJ, is that the fact that they let Sar go means they weren't, they're maybe just using him as depth this year, whereas when Butler and Baji were always more long term prospects or projects. So uh, yeah, yeah, Water Stream will be insane if we got number one. I don't know. I can't imagine that feeling too. It's kind of sad, but was one of the best feelings outside of maybe Dame hitting hitting the two playoff game winners and beating Denver in the uh, second round that year too. Outside of those moments, like the next biggest one is winning the lottery in 2007. Like that's crazy. Oh, your draft crush is Jalen Wilson, AJ. Yeah. Yeah, he's okay. I don't think he really does anything good enough to be really good at the next level, but he is a good glue guy. Um, Maybe like a little bigger Josh Hart type player. Um, which I don't think is bad. I think every team needs a guy like that. I don't really put, like, obviously the Blazers could use players like that. I just don't know if I most teams I would waste like a first round pick or anything on that. But yeah, if the Blazers keep their second round pick and can get someone who's a rotational player with that pick, I'd be fine with that. Chow Barrow says, "Do you think we'd ever run into a problem where we'd have too many rotation worthy guys if we draft two guys this year, along with all our guys right now who are already barely playing?" Um, I think at some point, yeah, you definitely would probably, like, obviously if we drafted a wing, you're probably gonna have to get rid of Nas and maybe not bring back Cam Reddish or something if you get say Brandon Miller or something. Um, if you get Jarris Walker, I think you can just slot him into that backup four role, which we don't really have right now in terms of like a legit backup four. So I don't think that would be a bad situation. Is Cam better than Nas? I don't know. I put them kind of in the same category. They both have a lot of flaws. Uh, both also show a lot of flashes of being good, but yeah, I don't know if either one you can really count on right now. Rahi says, "How do I rank Jarris, Osir, and Whitmore tier?" If we're just talking prospect wise, I think I have Osir first, Jarris second, Whitmore third. If we're talking for the Blazers, I probably put Jarris one. It's really close between those three, though. What's up, Carson? How you doing? Ant for John Collins would be a terrible trade. Collins is on just as bad of a contract and not as good of a player. Barros has a low-key crush on Lively with the Knicks pick. Yeah, let's do it. Jake Sports says, "Hey Eric, next time you're looking for an idea, make a video. Will you make an updated video on our cap space? I love referring people to them when they try and say we have a plan." Yeah, actually, so I try to do that before every offseason. So we're getting pretty close here to knowing exactly what avenues we'll have to in terms of cap space or free agents and trades and stuff this summer. So I'll definitely have one of those videos out soon. Maybe shortly after the season ends. How do you rank them, Rahi? Fire Cronin hired John Nash. He had his chance to. Rate Chauncey's. Oh, what's up, John Nash? You're in the chat. Rate Chauncey's coaching from 1 to 10. Man, I don't think you can go higher than like a 2 or a 3 right now. So, yeah. Probably say a 2 or a 3. And the only reason why it's not a 1 is because, like I said earlier in the stream, I do feel like this roster is designed to lose. Yeah, so yeah, very disappointing though. Vladimir says Embiid is almost impossible to get. What center can we possibly flip Nurk for this summer? I don't think we're flipping Nurk for any center. I think any of those moves, you either have to give up too much for someone who's not very much better, or you'd have to like trade him for someone that's worse. And I don't know. I just don't think that's going to be the answer. I think what you have to do is trade him, or not trade him, but find a center, whether that's in the draft or a younger player, and hope that that player eventually becomes better than Nurkic, so then you can move on from him. But not cool, Kieran. Not even a joke about. No, Tori just couldn't make it to the stream tonight, so that's all, Danny. Thanks for your concern, though. So yeah, I think there are centers like that. You just got to go out and find the next. I keep saying this. Find the next Daniel Gafford or Nicholas Claxton or whatever. I really like Darren Holmes in the draft. I think he could be a guy who has some skills set similar to that. Lively is a guy we've talked about several times on the stream. I think we just got to go find some young centers, and hopefully one of them pans out and develops into that. But yeah, I don't think, like, realistically we're going to be able to trade like Nurk for Miles Turner or Nurk for DeAndre Ayton or something. Like, I don't know. Eric Olson said, "Did you say you're keen on Cam Whitmore?" I like Cam Whitmore a lot. Just don't know if he's a good fit for the Blazers right now. How would I rank Lively, Ware, and Holmes? I put Lively 1 right now. Holmes probably 2 in terms of like next year helping the Blazers, and then Ware 3. But they're Lively's clear cut number 1 in my mind with those 3, but the other 2 are pretty close in my mind. Holmes I think is going to go in the second round, but he's going to be one of those guys like a lot of players that he just, like, he's just gonna fall to the second round, and I don't know, like, but I'm gonna have a first round grade on him, and yeah, but fully knowing he's not gonna go in the first round, kind of like Koloko last year. Leonard Miller, I also think is interesting still. That's also someone that I would like to consider with that Knicks pick if he's on the board. Just, big defensive-minded wings. I don't think you can have enough of those. So, Zach Edey is not being drafted with our Knicks pick. No, sorry, Priest. Why don't I think Whitmore is good for the Blazers? I just think he's going to be kind of that, like a smaller 3, and I just don't think, while I do like some of his skill sets for the Blazers, I just don't know if he's the right fit at the 3. Yeah, it's kind of redundant, but... What? Is it this Thursday? What are you talking about? How much do I think Hendricks raised his stock in the conference tourney? I don't think he raised it that much. I just think he had one really bad game. I think he's pretty solidly in that mid-teens. Could possibly move up if he works out well. Is March Madness this Thursday? Yes, the first round, well... What I consider is the first round starts Thursday. So the day where there's basketball from like 9 or 10 in the morning all the way till 9 or 10 at night, and there's like 16 games both days. The best 2 days of the year are this Thursday and Friday, yes. Do I see Jabari Walker getting more minutes next year? Probably not. I mean, he could, but I think they're fine with him, and they think he can provide some minutes, but I don't know. It's kind of, he's one of those guys who's gonna get lost if they're trying to win now. They're just keep him on the team because they need cheap contracts. But yeah. And Nurk for Bam package. I mean, I don't know. Short of getting a super high draft pick, I don't know if Miami's even considering that trade. So is Shea gonna come off the bench next season? Yeah, 100%. I think. I don't think he's. I mean, I know what I said earlier about how it was a shame he didn't start, but that was like injuries and stuff. I think he's still a year or two away from talking about like, oh, we have to start him. So yeah, I think he'll for sure be off the bench, but hopefully he's a little more consistent next year and becomes more of a bench scorer because we really need that. Jake Sports says, "Why do I have a bad feeling that if we get a top 5 pick, we're going to pick up a guard?" I mean, I would have a really, unless I mean, it's possible because like I've said many times, the contract situation lines up to where uh, I think they might have to trade Ant, so that would maybe make sense to still pick up a guard. But yeah, short of that happening, I just would seriously doubt they draft another guard. I think they would trade the pick long before they drafted a guard. Ant for Hawks Bogdanovich. Yeah, that's how you build a good team. Trade Ant for a much worse player on a. Yeah. Bogdanovich also has a opt out and is said to going to be opting out. Yeah, why would the Timberwolves do that? Because right, yeah, I answered that kind of earlier, but I'd much rather trade the pick and keep Ant, in my opinion. Ant for Jake Layman, yeah, that's a good trade. All right, well, we're a little over 2 hours into the stream, and probably a pretty good place to wrap it up. Ryan Reed says, "Do you see the Pels ever giving up on Zion, and would you take a flyer on him?" I mean, heck yeah, I'd take a flyer on Zion. I mean, he's a difference maker if he's healthy. So yeah, I would take a flyer on him. But the Pels are in kind of a weird position where they've had a disappointing season, but you could also just chalk it up to injuries. So yeah, I think there's definitely a case where they give up on him eventually, but I don't think it's going to be this summer. I think they're just going to chalk this year up to Ingram and Zion being hurt again and just running it back and try it one more time. Maybe make some small moves. Maybe even go like trade some of their depth for like an OG or something. Um, but yeah, uh, I'm guessing they're gonna run it back with CJ Ingram and Zion at the very least next summer. Maybe just shuffle the pieces around those two or three. If we got, I'm assuming you're meeting Jarris, Walker, and Lively. How much does that realistic improve our defense? Um, it wouldn't necessarily improve it a ton right away because I think both those guys might end up coming off the bench immediately, but our defensive bench would immediately get better, and it would allow Chauncey or whoever the coach is to run some more pressure coverages, some more hedging, some more. You'd have more better rim protection and stuff because both those guys are good rim protectors. So yeah, I would definitely hope we'd see a at least just a natural improvement on defense to closer to the middle of the road. But I don't really know if it helps immediately or not. Um, is Winslow a Blazer next year? Wow, that's a tough question too. It seems like he's the type that likes being here so much that he might take a discount to me. But yeah. Um, Torrey Craig for the MLE. Like I don't mind Torrey Craig type players. I think that's a player that type of player a lot of teams need. Um, but yeah, I just um, does he have a choice to take a discount? Funny, Trevor. Um, yeah, I don't know. Uh, I don't know. I think it might depend on what they do at other positions, especially with Reddish and Thibault. But yeah, have I watched Zach Edey at all? Yeah, I've watched Zach Edey a ton. I don't think he's like he gets the ball anywhere near the basket and he's like automatic pretty much. Like you can't stop him in college. Um, I just think in the NBA you can't be as much around the hoop. You get pushed out a little more, and there's bigger, stronger guys. I just think he's going to have a little bit tougher time getting low position like he does so easily in college. So it's just going to be a tough situation for him. I still think he can make the NBA and be a good player. I was thinking about this earlier. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Kofi Cockburn last year, and that was a guy who could physically dominate in college, but like isn't NBA level because he can't just use his strength and size. But yeah, obviously he's dominant in college because you can't really be physical with him, stuff like that. So um, yeah, yeah. So um, yeah, I mean he does have good mobility. It's not. I mean I've compared him to like Boban in the past. He's not that immobile. I just against guards in the NBA, he's not going to be able to stay in front. I think teams will just pick and roll him to death and get him to switch, and I think you'll be able, like most NBA guards, will be able to blow by him. But yeah, I mean, I don't. I think he's going to go in the second round. Someone will take a chance on him, and there's always room for that, especially off the bench where you're maybe playing against not quite as big as centers or not quite as skilled centers like a Drew Eubanks, and you can maybe do some things with them. I don't think he's going to be like a first rounder or like a starter level player in the NBA. But yeah, for being 7'4", he's tall. But we also have a guy who's 7'5" in this draft that can actually move like a guard, so it's kind of hard to compare. Yeah. All right. Um, yeah, he does look like Shaq in college. Taco Fall. Yeah, that was another guy who's. I mean, he didn't dominate. Like, I mean, Zach Edey might be National Player of the Year this year, so that's he's had a pretty good. I mean, Nick Thompson. I don't know why you waste your time saying to sign people that we're not going to sign. Good night, Mom. What I think of Chris Murray. I actually really like Chris Murray a lot. I think he's someone who's going to uh, be one of those risers up draft boards as the process goes on. I don't think he'll get up to like top 8 or so because this draft is so loaded, but I could definitely see him sneaking into the back half of the lottery, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think the success his brothers had this year with the Kings too, how well he shot the three ball, also will lend teams to think, why can't Chris come in and do some of those things that he does? So yeah, I definitely think that's someone, if he does fall to the Blazers pick in the 20s, that's someone they should consider. And also just both him and Keegan, man, just anytime you get a player that goes from being not very good to like insanely good in one off season, you obviously have a tremendous work ethic. So much like his brother the year before, like obviously there's something there in terms of just getting better and stuff like that. And I always take a chance on guys like that over ones that are just like, I always say like Aaron Gordon, who has like the tools to be like one of the best players of all time, but can't figure out how to shoot or do things, and like just kind of wailed away on Orlando for a while until getting sent to the perfect situation. So yeah, I always put a little bit better stock in players that improve from one year to another. Tyrese Halliburton was another guy for me who really popped after 1 year into his sophomore year. And so, yeah, like guys like that where they have to have a really good work ethic to do that. I think you can count on them to at least be, try their best to be good players. But yeah. Okay, I can't bring Tankathon up on stream, but I'll just do one thing and I'll tell you the results. Sorry, that's going to be how we have to run it today. All right, you guys ready for the Tankathon to end the stream? I am going to only click it once here. Show you guys on here. Let me get the mouse in the right spot. All right, so I'm going to click Sim Lottery, and I'm going to put down my thing. All right, so as we go from the bottom, Utah is 14, Oklahoma City 13, New Orleans 12, Lakers 11, going to New Orleans. 10 is Toronto. At 9, we have the Pacers moving down one spot to 9. At 8, we have the Washington Wizards moving down 2 spots. At 7, we have... Who do you guys think is 7? At 7 is the Orlando Magic moving down 2 spots. At number 6, the Houston Rockets move all the way down to 6. At number 5, the Detroit Pistons move down 4 spots from they now have the worst record somehow. So they move all the way down to 5. Which leaves the top 4 teams moving up as San Antonio, Portland, Chicago, and Charlotte. So this would be pretty exciting in this situation because, I mean, as much as we don't want Wemby to be in the West, we have 2 teams now that are in the East, so that's good. And then we have the Blazers and Spurs. So yeah, I could live with this result. All right, so then at number 4, we have the San Antonio Spurs. So they move actually down a spot from 3 to 4. At number 3, in this sim, we have the Portland Trailblazers. So we got 3rd. Yeah, Tori was calling me bad luck last week. Jeez. So yeah, we got 3rd. 2nd is the Chicago Bulls are 2nd. They move up 7 spots from 9 to 2. And at number 1 is the Charlotte Hornets. They get Wemby to pair with Mark Williams and and LaMelo Ball. Yep. So yeah, this becomes really interesting. I think there's basically two plays. You take Brandon Miller as long as you feel comfortable with his legal situation, or I mean, I think number three gets you. If that can't get you OG or Mikal Bridges or whatever, um, yeah. So I mean, obviously, if number three in a big package for Embiid, you definitely try that first. But I think at the very least, three should be high enough to where you're you're going for Mikal and stuff. But like I said, the problem is if you do that, you also have to give up Sharp most likely, unless you worked out some sort of deal uh, where you're basically signing him and then using his contract down the road. I don't even know if the Nets would be willing to do that, but yeah. So, um, but yeah. So no one's trading Wemby. If you get Wemby, it's either for you're either trading it for Embiid or Giannis or something like that, or you're not trading it. No one else is trading it other than for a top five player or whatever. But yeah, I mean, if it was me, I'd probably just take Brandon Miller, and I think he's really freaking good, and I think he can come in and play right away. So yeah, I'd probably do that. So yeah, that's Tankathon for tonight. We move up to number three, and Brian talked about that earlier too. Sorry, don't want to just keep bringing up the same questions. Um, but yeah, be very interesting. I mean, I don't know if there would be some sort of backlash against it because of the situation, but is he more of a four or a three? I definitely think he's a three in the NBA. I think he's the perfect size to be a three in the NBA. So yeah, I'd say a three is his perfect spot. So I think he'd probably be our starter from day one, and yeah, you can continue bringing Sharp off the bench as your backup 2-3. You probably make some other moves then. So all right, and Tori just let us know that he did a bracket pick video where he goes through the brackets and picks his team. Someone who really does a lot of research and does his own bracketology and stuff. So if you are interested in that kind of stuff, go watch Tori's video after this stream. And I just want to thank everyone for watching. Appreciate you bearing with me despite not being able to figure some stuff out with the graphics. And I don't believe it's too late to be in the bracket pool. So yeah, if you're interested, Tori has both a free bracket pool. If for anyone to join, like even if you don't know anything about uh, the NCAA basketball or college basketball or anything, just pick mascots or just guess or whatever, pick the higher seeds, whatever. Like it doesn't, just have fun with it. And then you can print out a bracket and watch games and hope your team that you pick win and all that kind of stuff. So it's so much fun. It's like the first 2 days of the tourney is so cool. But if you want to be in a more serious one, yeah, there's a $20 one as well. Just hit up Tori on Discord or Twitter if you're interested in that. He also has posted links to those on his Twitter page. So go join that. Even if you're bad historically, like Chris Brandlin says he is, you should also. It's still really fun to do. Like I love it, man. I used to print out like 20 brackets and like try to figure out which one I wanted to have and have my main one and all that stuff. And like even if you do bad, yeah, it's just it's a great time. And then also this year it's a little different than last year because last year most of the top picks were also playing in March Madness. This year, you have Brandon Miller, of course, but several of the other top picks, like obviously Wemby and the Thompson twins, Scoot, and then some of the other prospects, their teams didn't even make the NCAA tournament. So that's a case where Cam is out. That's it. Oh, you're talking about Nova. Villanova's out. Yeah, they didn't have a very good year. But yeah, so unfortunately this year, a lot of the top prospects aren't actually playing in March Madness like last year, but it's still a blast to watch, and you can just root for underdogs and big teams like Duke getting upset by Lehigh and CJ McCollum, stuff like that. So, all right, one last question before I go. If Sharp was in this draft, where do you think he would be? I don't think it would be any higher than he was last year because of, I mean, obviously he played this year, it might be different, but if you were just talking about him being a mystery still, I think he would fall out of like 10 at the highest. So I think he'd be like late lottery, mid-teens. And it's not necessarily because he would have done anything wrong. I just think there's so many players in this draft that are just as high of upside, but aren't necessarily the mystery. So yeah, probably maybe at best like 8 or 9, but probably most likely like 10 to 13ish in this draft. But yeah, Sharp would go whenever the Blazers draft. Yeah, funny. Yeah, maybe. But yeah, that's gonna do it. The Blazers get absolutely demolished. Give up 41 points to freaking Trey Murphy, who should be a Blazer. We should have traded for him instead of Josh Hart. Just kidding. Not really, but yeah, I know. But anyways, I'd like to thank BetOnline for presenting this post-game show. Once again, go to betonline.ag. If you're interested in gambling at all, great website. Use that code BLEAV for a 50% bonus. And yeah, check that out, especially if you want to gamble on the NCAA tournament coming up. But thank you everyone for watching. Hope everyone has a great day. And we'll see you all tomorrow. Blazers Uprise live tomorrow. Post-game show after the game on Tuesday. So yeah, we'll see you on Blazers Uprise Live. If you have any questions or want to see Tori's beautiful face, about 3:30 tomorrow. Hope to see you there. Everyone have a good night. This has been the Blazers Uprise post-game show presented by BetOnline. Until next time, peace out. Go Blazers.